Michael Thompson's hand tightened around his daughter's backpacks as he scanned the crowded hospital hallway. "Lily, Emily, Sophia," he called out. His voice had that specific tone every parent knows, the one hovering somewhere between annoyance and panic. They'd been right next to him 30 seconds ago, and now, gone. Before the story begins, please note that it explores thoughtful themes of family, humanity, and personal responsibility. This content is intended to encourage reflection and empathy. If you feel unprepared for these themes, you may wish to pause before continuing. He'd only looked away for a second, just a moment to check his phone for Sophia's appointment room number, and his 7-year-old triplets had vanished like smoke. "Girls!" he yelled, spinning in circles as his heart rate spiked. The pediatric wing at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago was a maze. Endless hallways, identical doors, and his daughters had the combined attention span of a caffeinated squirrel. Then he heard it. Giggling. That specific kind of mischievous giggling that meant his girls were absolutely, definitely, 100% somewhere they shouldn't be. He followed the sound down the hall, past the nurse's station, and around a corner. The giggles got louder. "Girls, this isn't funny. We're going to be late for—" He grabbed the handle of room 247, swung the door open, and froze. This wasn't Sophia's checkup room. This was someone else's world. Someone else's end. The woman in the bed turned her head. Young, maybe 28. Her auburn hair spread across the pillow like spilled autumn leaves, eyes the color of a stormy sea. And in those eyes, resignation. That stillness that comes when you've already said your goodbyes. His 3 daughters were at the foot of her bed. Lily's tiny hand was already reaching out toward the woman's fingers. Emily had climbed halfway onto the mattress. Sophia watched with that unsettling wisdom 7-year-old LDS sometimes have. The kind that sees straight to the truth. "Daddy," Lily whispered, never taking her eyes off the woman. "She's all alone. Before we go on, please tell us where in the world you're tuning in from. We love seeing how far our stories travel." Michael's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He should grab his girls, apologize, and leave. This was private, sacred, a stranger's final chapter. And they had just barged in like they owned the place. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way the woman's expression shifted when she saw his daughters. Not irritation, not confusion. Something else. Something that looked dangerously close to hope. "I am so sorry," Michael managed to say, finally stepping into the room. "My girls have a gift for finding trouble. We were looking for room 274 and—" "She's just fine," said the new jerk. Woman's voice. Soft, tired, but not unkind. "They're beautiful." Emily, always the boldest one, climbed all the way onto the bed now, her little body settling near the woman's hip, like they'd known each other forever. "What's your name?" "Emily, get down right now," Michael said, shame flooding his chest. "I am so sorry, ma'am. Girls, we need to go. Now." "Ava," the woman said, ignoring him completely. Her eyes were locked on Emily. "My name's Ava. I'm Emily." "That's Lily, and that's Sophia." Emily pointed to each of her sisters in turn. "We're triplets. That means we all have the same birthday. But we're different people." Ava's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "I can see that. You're very different. Why are you here all alone?" Sophia asked with that blunt honesty only kids have. "Don't you have a family?" Michael felt his stomach drop. "Sophia, that's not— You can't just ask people that." "It's okay," Ava said again, but this time her voice cracked a little. She cleared her throat and looked toward the window, where the gray February light was filtering through the half-closed blinds. No, I don't have any family." Lily, still holding Ava's hand, squeezed it tighter. "That's really sad," Lily whispered. Michael tried to speak again, but his voice had lost its edge. Because it was sad. Devastating, actually. To die alone in a hospital room with no one to hold your hand. No one to tell you everything's going to be okay, even when it won't be. Ava looked at the triplets, and something in her expression shifted. The resignation flickered out, replaced by something raw. "It is sad," she whispered. But that's just how things are sometimes. No, it's not. Emily said it with the stubbornness of a 7-year-old who hadn't learned yet that the world doesn't always bend to kindness. Now you've got us. Michael held his breath. He really should leave, but his feet wouldn't move. And his daughters, his beautiful, empathetic, mischievous daughters, had already decided this woman was no longer a stranger. The door clicked open behind them, and a nurse walked in. Her expression shifted from professional to confused the moment she saw Michael and the girls. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know Ava had visitors." "They're just leaving," Ava said quickly. Too quickly, like she was trying to save them from the awkwardness. "Actually," Michael heard himself say, hardly believing the words coming out of his own mouth, "we were hoping to stay a little longer, if Ava's okay with that?" 3 pairs of identical brown eyes turned to look at him, beaming with pure joy. The nurse looked surprised, and Ava looked like someone had just handed her something she'd forgotten even existed. Permission not to be alone. "Ah, yes," Ava stammered. "If you want to. But don't you have things to do?" Michael checked his watch. Sophia's appointment was in 20 minutes. He could reschedule. "Nothing's more important than this," he said softly. The nurse nodded slowly, a look of understanding crossing her face. "I'll be back in a moment to check your vitals," she said, then left, closing the door softly behind her. Silence settled over the room. Not uncomfortable, but heavy with the strangeness of the situation. Strangers colliding by accident, or maybe something else entirely. "So," said Michael, pulling a chair up to the bed and sitting down. "I'm Michael, and I apologize in advance for anything my daughters might say in the next 10 minutes. They have absolutely no filter." Ava laughed. She really laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to surprise even her. "I like that about them." "What's wrong with you?" Sophia asked, perched at the foot of the bed like a tiny little bird. "Why do you have all these tubes?" Michael's face went red, but Ava just smiled. Sadness crept back into her eyes. "I'm sick. Very sick. My heart doesn't work the way it should. Can the doctors fix it?" Lily asked. Ava hesitated. "They're trying, but sometimes bodies just don't want to cooperate." "You should try harder," Emily said. "Seriously, tell your body to behave." "I wish it worked like that, sweetie." "It does work," Emily insisted. "You just have to wish for it really, really hard." Michael wanted to explain that terminal illness didn't work that way, that wishing wasn't enough, that sometimes. The world was cruel and unfair, and 7-year-olds just didn't understand yet. But seeing Ava's face, the way something shifted there, something small but real, he kept his mouth shut. "Maybe you're right," Ava whispered. "Maybe I just haven't wished hard enough." For the next hour, Michael sat in the hospital room and watched his daughters work their particular brand of magic. They told Ava about their school, their dog, named Buddy the Beagle, and their dad's terrible attempts at making barbecue ribs. Emily showed her a drawing she'd made that morning of a rainbow unicorn fighting a dragon. Lily sang a song she had learned in music class, slightly off-key but with tremendous enthusiasm. Sophia simply held Ava's hand and asked her questions. What was her favorite color? Did she like ice cream? Did she believe in mermaids? And Ava came alive. The resignation faded from her eyes, replaced by genuine laughter, real smiles, moments where she forgot that she was dying and just existed in the present with 3 chaotic 7-year-olds who decided she was worth their time. Michael found himself watching her. Really looking at her. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, there was something in the way she interacted with his daughters, the sweetness in her answers, the way she lit up when Emily climbed onto her lap to show her the unicorn drawing. She would have been a wonderful mother. The thought hit him like a punch to the chest. Would have, in the past tense, because Ava wasn't going to get that chance. His wife, Sarah, had died 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Fast, brutal, and completely unfair. He had been left with 3 5-year-olds who didn't understand why mommy wasn't coming home, and he'd spent the last 24 Months trying to be both parents while drowning in grief. He couldn't show them. He understood loss. He understood the hollow ache of a stolen future. "Mr. Thompson?" The nurse poked her head in again, apologetically. "I hate to interrupt, but I need to take Ava's vitals and give her medication." Michael checked his watch. They'd been there for over an hour. Sophia's appointment was long gone. "All right, girls, we have to let Ava get some rest." The protests were immediate and loud. "But we just got here. We're not done talking. Can't we stay a little longer?" "Can you come back?" Ava asked quickly. Then she seemed to correct herself, uncertainty flickering on her face. "I mean, if you want to." "You don't have to. I'm sure you're busy with, we want to," Michael interrupted. He met her eyes and saw the vulnerability there, the fear of hoping for something and being disappointed. "We'll come back tomorrow, if that's okay with you." Ava's eyes filled with tears. She held them back quickly, nodding. "Yes, that would be... yes." Lily hugged her first, wrapping her small arms around Ava's neck, then Emily, then Sophia, who whispered something in Ava's ear that made her smile through her tears. Michael didn't ask what his daughter had said. Some things were meant to stay between a dying woman and a 7-year-old girl. As they walked out of the room, Michael looked back. Ava was watching them go, one hand pressed against her chest, her expression a mixture of wonder and something that looked dangerously close to hope. That night, after tucking the girls in, Michael sat in his kitchen and looked at his phone. He Googled Ava's condition. Dilated cardiomyopathy, advanced stage. The prognosis was grim. Weeks, maybe months if she was lucky. And she was all alone. There was no family on record, no emergency contacts other than her doctor. How did someone get to 28 years old with no one? What kind of life had Ava led to end up dying in a hospital? A room with no visitors until 3 curious triplets barged in by accident. He should let it go. He had enough on his plate. 3 daughters to raise, a demanding job as an architect, a house that was always one disaster away from total chaos. Getting involved with a dying stranger wasn't smart, wasn't practical. It would only end in more pain, more loss, more explaining to his daughters why someone else they loved wasn't coming back. But he kept seeing Ava's face when Emily had climbed into her lap. He kept hearing how she laughed at Sophia's bad joke. He kept remembering how his daughters had refused to leave because they had seen something in Ava that everyone else had apparently missed, someone worth staying for. The next day, Michael showed up at room 247 with 3 girls, a coloring book, and a thermos of chili his mother had made. The nurse at the station smiled when she saw them. "Ava's been asking about you all morning," she said softly. "I think you made quite an impression." Ava was sitting up when they entered, and Michael could see immediately that she had made an effort. Her hair was brushed, falling in soft waves over her shoulders. She was wearing a different gown, still hospital issue, but somehow she'd managed to make it look less clinical. She had put on some lip gloss, lips, and her eyes, those eyes the color of a stormy sea, lit up the moment she saw them. "You came back," she breathed out. "We said we would," Emily said matter-of-factly, already climbing onto the bed. "We brought you chili and coloring pages," Lily added, holding up the book. "Dad said you might get bored. I thought maybe we could all color together," Michael said, pulling the chairs closer. "If you're up to it." For the next 2 hours, they colored. Ava's hand trembled slightly as she held the crayons, but she worked with careful concentration on a butterfly that Lily had picked out for her. The girls chattered non-stop about the new adventure of Buddy the Beagle chasing squirrels in the backyard, about how Sophia had lost another tooth, and about the spelling test Emily had aced. Michael found himself just watching the way Ava asked questions. She actually listened to the answers. She laughed at the right moments, the way his daughters had completely and totally adopted her into their world, without hesitation, the way. Something painful in his chest was starting to ease slightly in Ava's presence. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said quietly, during a moment when the girls were arguing over whether butterflies should be purple or pink. She was looking at Michael with a guarded expression. "Of course." "Why are you doing this? You don't know me, you don't owe me anything. And She paused. She swallowed hard. "I'm not going to get better. I know what this is. I know how it ends. Why waste your time? Michael put down his crayon, choosing his words carefully. My wife died 2 years ago. Cancer. And in the end, she had me. She had her parents. She had friends. But what killed her almost as much as the disease was feeling like a burden. Like she was stealing time from people who had better things to do. Ava's eyes glistened. You are not a waste of time, Ava, Michael continued gently. And my daughters. They don't see a dying woman. They just see someone who needed friends. Someone worth showing up for. And honestly, he smiled. They're better judges of character than most adults I know. A tear slid down Ava's cheek. She wiped it away quickly. I've never had friends, she whispered. No, really. I grew up in foster care, 15 different homes. By the time I was older, I learned early on that people leave. Everyone leaves. So I stopped trying to make connections. I stopped hoping anyone would stay. And now, her voice cracked. Now I'm 28 years old, and I'm dying alone. And I can't even be mad, because it's exactly what I expected. Daddy, why is Ava crying? Sophia looked up, worried. Sometimes people cry when they're happy, Bug, Michael said softly. Are you happy, Ava? Emily asked. Ava laughed through her tears. Yeah, I think maybe I am. They visited every day that week. Michael rearranged his work schedule, taking freelance projects he could do from the hospital. The girls brought homework, crafts, and stories. They introduced Ava to Buddy the Beagle over a video call, which ended with the dog barking at the screen and a 5-minute chase around the living room. Ava started physical therapy. She started eating more and began sitting up instead of just lying there. The nurses noticed it. Her doctor noticed it. Michael noticed that something in Ava was fighting again, and he suspected it had everything to do with 3 7-year-old girls who refused to let her give up. 2 weeks after that accidental first meeting, Dr. Ramirez pulled Michael aside in the hallway. I don't know what you're doing, Dr. Ramirez said, but keep doing it. Her numbers are improving, not miraculously, not a cure, but improving. Her will to fight is back, and in cases like this, that matters more than people think. She's just not alone anymore, Michael said simply. Dr. Ramirez nodded slowly. Ava told me about her situation. No family, no support system. We've been trying to find a place for her when she gets discharged, but I'm hesitant. The reality is, she'll need a lot of help. 24-hour care, at least initially, and she has no one. Michael knew what she was asking before she even asked it. How long until discharge? If this improvement continues, maybe a week. But Michael, this is a huge ask. You have your own family to think about. He did. He absolutely did. 3 daughters who needed him. A career that was already at the breaking point. A life that was barely holding together on the good days. Taking in a woman who was still very sick, who would need constant care. They might have weeks or months, but certainly not years. It was reckless insanity. Completely impractical. Let me talk to my girls, he said. That night after dinner, Michael sat the triplets down in the living room. Girls, we need to have a serious talk about Ava. 3 pairs of identical eyes looked at him with a sudden weariness. Is she okay? Lily asked. She's actually getting better, much better. But when she gets out of the hospital, she's going to need help. A lot of help. And she doesn't have anyone to take care of her. We can take care of her, Emily said immediately. Sweetheart, it's not that simple. Ava is still very sick. She would need to live with someone who could help her with everything. Medicine, food, doctor's appointments. It's a big responsibility. Sophia tilted her head, studying him with that unsettling perception she had. You want her to live with us? It wasn't a question. Michael sighed. I'm thinking about it, but that would mean big changes for all of us. It would mean sharing our space, our time. It would mean watching someone we care about possibly get worse. And it would mean, he paused, his throat tight. It could mean losing her eventually, just like we lost Mommy. The room went silent. Sarah's absence was still a presence in their house, a ghost that lived in the photos on the walls, the empty chair at the table, the bedtime stories that Michael still didn't tell quite right. Mommy would want us to help her, Lily said finally. Mommy always said we should help people who need help. And Ava needs help, Emily added. And we like her, Sophia finished. So we should help her. It isn't complicated, Daddy. Michael felt something open in his chest, something that had been tightly sealed for 2 years. His daughters, barely 7 years old, understood something most adults took a lifetime to learn. Love wasn't convenient, kindness wasn't practical, but they were always, always worth it. Okay, he said softly. Okay, let's bring Ava home. The logistics were tricky. Michael had to hire a home health aide. He reorganized the guest room downstairs and installed medical equipment. Ava's insurance covered part of it, but he quietly covered the rest, ignoring the voice in his head telling him he couldn't afford it, that he shouldn't afford it, that he was making a terrible financial decision. When he told Ava the plan, she cried. In fact, she broke down, sobbing, and Michael held her hand while she trembled under the weight of being chosen, valued, considered worthy of the effort. I don't understand why you're doing this, she whispered. I'm a stranger. I'm dying. I'll be nothing but trouble, expense, and disappointment. You're not a stranger, Michael said firmly. You're our friend now, and friends show up even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Ava moved in on a Tuesday in March. The girls had decorated her room with crayon drawings. They'd picked flowers from the garden. They'd arranged their stuffed animals on the bed so she wouldn't feel lonely. Michael helped her inside, supporting her weight as she slowly shuffled from the car to the house. She was so thin now, so fragile. But her eyes shone as she looked around her home. It's perfect, she exhaled. It's so perfectly normal, chaotic, and full of life. That's one way to put it, Michael said with a smile. I usually call it a disaster zone, but yours is nicer. The first few weeks were tough. Ava had good days and bad days. Days when she could sit at the kitchen table and color with the girls, and days when she couldn't get out of bed, where pain etched lines into her face. And all Michael could do was adjust her medication and hold her hand until it passed. His daughters faced it with the resilience of children, who had already learned that love meant staying even when things were hard. They brought Ava breakfast in, bed on the bad days, read her stories, and sat quietly doing their homework in her room so she wouldn't be alone. And slowly, impossibly, Ava got stronger. Not cured. The sickness was still there, still progressing, but she was stronger. She started walking to the kitchen without help. She started laughing more. She started talking about the future in terms of weeks and months instead of days. It's extraordinary, Doctor, Ramirez said during a house call. I've seen cases where will and purpose extended life, but this is extraordinary. Whatever they were doing here, it was working. What they were doing was living. Living simply, ordinarily, beautifully. Ava helped the girls with their homework at the kitchen table. She taught them how to bake apple pie that only sometimes got burnt. She'd sit in the garden while they played, face turned toward the sun, soaking up a warmth that she thought she'd never feel again. And Michael found himself falling not just into a routine or responsibility, but into something deeper, something that terrified him, because he'd sworn, after Sarah died, that he would never, ever let himself love that hard again. The pain of the loss was just too much. The risk was too high. But Ava wasn't Sarah. She was herself. Quiet where Sarah was loud, gentle where Sarah was fierce. She told bad jokes that made the girls groan. She cried at animated movies. She had a habit of leaving her coffee mug in random spots around the house. And when she smiled at him over breakfast, something in Michael's chest ached in a way that felt dangerously close to hope. 6 months after Ava moved in, Michael's mom came to visit. She saw Ava playing board games with the triplets in the living room. She saw Michael watching Ava with soft eyes and pulled him into the kitchen. "You're in love with her," she said. It wasn't a question. Michael started to deny it, then stopped. "Yeah." "Does she know?" "No, and she can't." "Mom, she's still sick." "She's getting better, but she's not cured." I can't put that burden on her. The pressure of knowing how I feel while she's fighting just to survive. It wouldn't be fair." His mother studied him for a long moment. "Your father had a heart attack when you were 10. Remember that?" Michael nodded. He remembered the terror, the hospital, the uncertainty. The doctors said he might not make it, his mother went on. They said even if he survived, his quality of life would go down. They told me to prepare for the worst. And you know what I did? What? I told him I loved him every single day. Because I realized that if those were going to be his last days, I wanted them filled with love, not fear. I wanted him to know he was cherished, that he mattered, that he was worth fighting for. And he fought. 30 years later, he's still here. But even if he hadn't, I wouldn't regret loving him out loud. Michael felt tears stinging his eyes. What if I lose her, Mom? What if I finally let myself feel this, and then it will hurt, and you'll suffer. But Michael, you're already in love with her. You're already in deep. You're going to suffer if something happens to her anyway. The only question is, do you want her to know she's loved before it's too late? That night, after the girls were asleep, Michael sat with Ava in the backyard. Summer had arrived, and fireflies were dancing in the warm dark. Ava was wrapped up in a blanket, despite the heat, but she was smiling peacefully. Can I tell you something? Michael asked softly. Always. He took a breath and took the leap. I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I already fell for you somewhere, between the hospital room and the kitchen table, and watching you teach Lily how to braid hair. And I know the timing is terrible, and I know that. Maybe you don't feel the same way. And I know you have every right to tell me this is too much. But my mom reminded me today that life is uncertain and short, and we don't have any guarantees. So I just wanted you to know, you're not just someone we're helping. You're someone who's been broken, someone I love. Ava was quiet for so long that Michael thought he'd made a terrible mistake. Then she spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. I've never been loved before. Not by my parents, not by my foster families, not by anyone. I didn't think I was the kind of person who could be loved. And then 3 little girls burst into my hospital room and decided I was worth saving. And their dad looked at me like I was a person, not a patient. And for the first time in my life, I thought maybe I did matter. Maybe I was worth something. She turned to look at him. Tears were streaming down her face. I'm scared, Michael. I'm scared of getting worse again. Scared of hurting your girls when I die. Scared of breaking your heart. Scared of ruining this beautiful thing you've given me. You're not going to ruin anything, Michael said, taking her hand. And yeah, if we lose you, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt so much. But Ava, this life we've had, this life you've built with us, it's worth the risk. You are worth the risk. I love you too, Ava whispered. I love you so much it terrifies me. Michael pulled her close, and she collapsed against his chest, and they just stayed there in the backyard, while the fireflies danced and the world spun, and 2 broken people held each other up. The next morning, the triplets found them asleep on the couch. Ava curled up next to Michael, his arm around her shoulders. They screamed with joy, jumping on the sofa, demanding to know if this meant Ava was their mom now. Not yet, Michael laughed, but maybe someday. Someday soon, Lily insisted. That day came 8 months later. Ava had been living with them for over a year, and against all odds, against every medical prediction, she was still here, still fighting, still laughing at Sophia's jokes and burning apple pies with Emily, and letting Lily practice braiding her hair. Her doctor called it a medical miracle. Michael called it love. Ava called it having a reason to stay. One Saturday morning in November, Michael took Ava back to St. Mary's Hospital, not as a patient, but as a visitor, back to room 247, which was empty at the moment, waiting for its next occupant. Why are we here? Ava asked, confused. Michael got down on one knee right there in the hospital room. He pulled out a ring he'd been carrying for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment, because this was where my life changed, where 3 mischievous little girls opened the wrong door and found someone extraordinary, where I learned that love doesn't follow rules or deadlines nor logic, where I met the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with, however long that life might be. Ava's hand flew to her mouth. Ava Rivera, will you marry me? Would you let 3 little girls call you Mom? Would you let me love you for every day we have left, whether it's weeks or months or years or decades? Would you take this ridiculous, chaotic, beautiful life we've built and make it official?" "Yes," Ava sobbed. "Yes, yes, yes." The wedding was small. Michael's parents, a handful of friends, the doctor who had become something like family, and 3 flower girls in matching purple dresses, who took their job very seriously, scattering petals with military precision. While Buddy the Beagle watched curiously from his leash, Ava wore white. She was still thin, still fragile, but radiant. When she walked down the aisle, she walked without help, strong enough now to do it on her own. Michael felt tears streaming down his face. "You came back to me," he whispered when she reached him. "You gave me a reason to," she whispered back. They said their vows in the same hospital chapel where Michael had once prayed for his wife to survive, where he had said goodbye to Sarah, where he thought his story had ended. But it hadn't ended. It had just been waiting to start again. "I promise to love you on the good days and the bad days," Ava said with a steady voice. "To show up, even when it's hard, to choose you every morning, to be the mother your daughters deserve and the partner you need, to live every day like the gift that it is. Because now, I know that not everyone gets second chances. And you and Lily and Emily and Sophia are my second chance." Michael couldn't speak through his tears. He could only take her hands and nod, trying to convey everything he felt with the squeeze of his fingers, the look in his eyes. The officiant declared them married. The triplets cheered, and Michael kissed his wife, his second chance, his unexpected miracle. The woman who had been dying until 3 little girls decided she wasn't allowed to give up. 2 years later, Ava was in the backyard of their house, watching Michael chase 3 9-year-old girls who were pretending to be superheroes. Her hand rested on her chest, feeling the steady beat of her heart. Still damaged, still fragile, but beating. She defied all the odds. She lived past every prognosis. Her doctor called it unprecedented. Her husband called it stubbornness. She called it being loved back to life. "Mama Ava!" Emily called out. "Come be a superhero with us, Mama Ava." She never thought she'd hear those words. She never thought she'd have a family, a home, a reason to wake up in the morning beyond just surviving one more day. She joined the game, zooming dramatically while the girls squealed with laughter. Michael met her gaze from across the backyard. He smiled that soft smile that still made her heart stutter, and told her silently, "I love you." "I love you too," she answered silently. That night, after the girls were tucked in with elaborate, superhero-themed bedtime stories, Ava found Michael in the kitchen. He was loading the dishwasher, a task he tackled with the precision of an engineer, which always made her smile. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "The wrong door." Michael turned around. He studied her face. "Every day. Do you think it was really the wrong door?" "I mean..." He walked over and pulled her into his arms. "I don't think 3 mischievous little girls knew exactly what they were doing. I think they saw someone who needed saving, and they just refused to leave. I think they led me exactly where I needed to go, even if I was too stubborn to realize it at the time." Ava rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I was so ready to die," she whispered. "I'd made my peace with it. And then your daughters burst in like little hurricanes and decided I wasn't allowed to give up. And suddenly, I had a reason to fight. A reason to try. A reason to believe that tomorrow might be worth seeing." "I'm glad they're stubborn," Michael murmured into her hair. "Me too. There's something I never told you," she said softly. "About that day. The day your daughters found me." Michael frowned with concern. "What is it?" Ava took his hand and led him to the kitchen table. They sat down, and she held both of his hands in hers. "That morning, I'd made a decision," she began. "The doctors told me I had maybe 2 weeks left. The pain was getting worse. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every breath felt like drowning. And I thought, what's the point? Why drag it out?" Michael's hand tightened over hers. "That morning, I told the nurses I was done. No more medication, no more fighting. I just wanted to sleep and never wake up. Tears rolled down Ava's cheeks. And then I heard that sound. Giggles, little girls giggling in the hallway. And I remember thinking how cruel it was that the last sound I would hear would be a joy I'd never get to experience. The door opened, she continued, and there they were, 3 little girls, identical, with curly hair and bright eyes, and they looked at me like I was a person, not a dying patient, like I mattered. And Lily took my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Connection, like maybe I wasn't completely alone in the universe. She looked up at Michael. You saved my life that day. Not just medically. You saved me from giving up. Your daughters burst through that door and decided I was worth sticking around for. And suddenly, I had a reason to take my medication, a reason to eat, a reason to fight one more day, just to see them again. Michael stood up, pulling her up with him, and hugged her so tight she could barely breathe. I love you, he said fiercely. I love you so much. I know, Ava whispered. And that's the miracle. Not that my heart kept beating. The miracle is that I learned what it feels like to be loved, to be chosen, to belong. You gave me something I spent 28 years believing I'd never have. A family, a home, a reason to wake up smiling. She cupped his face in her hands. Your daughters didn't just save me, Michael. They taught you it was okay to love again, to risk your heart again, to believe happiness was still possible after loss. And they taught me that I was worth loving, worth fighting for, worth the effort. You are, Michael said firmly. You always were. You just needed someone to see it. 3 someones, Ava smiled. 3 little stubborn, beautiful someones who refused to take no for an answer. I want to do something, Ava said. I want to go back to that hospital. Not as a patient, but as a volunteer. I want to visit the people who are alone, the ones without family, without visitors. I want to be for someone else what your daughters were for me. Michael's eyes shone with pride. Ava, that's beautiful. I know I still have limitations, but I'm here, and I want to make sure no one else feels as lonely as I did. Just a few hours a week, sitting with people, reminding them that they're seen. When do you start? Michael asked. Next month, if that's okay with you. More than okay. I'm in awe of you. The girls want to help people when they grow up, Ava said. That's what families do. Michael nodded. They learn from the best. Later that night, Michael watched Ava sleep. 2 years ago, he had been drowning in grief. Then, 3 mischievous little girls chased Giggles down a hallway, burst through the wrong door, and found someone worth saving. They had been right. Outside their window, the world kept turning. Morning would come with its chaos. The girls would argue. Buddy the Beagle would beg for treats. Life would be messy and perfectly imperfect. And Michael and Ava would face it together, proving that sometimes wrong doors lead exactly where you need to go. That sometimes happy endings are real. Upstairs, 3 little girls slept peacefully. In the morning, they'd wake up for breakfast, fight over the blue bowl, argue about walking Buddy. Just an ordinary, chaotic family. Sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you were meant to be. Sometimes 3 7-year-olds know better than anyone who deserves saving. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you that kindness still matters, that compassion still changes lives, and that hope is never wasted. Subscribe and become part of our family at Tales of Kindness, where every story lifts the chin, spirit, and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.